Howdy, today on Flippin Science, we're looking at ecosystem diversity and stability. So science understanding we're going to look at, describe diversity in terms of ecosystems, and in general, the higher the biodiversity of an ecosystem, the more stable it is. Now we need to talk about the wide variety in ecosystems. There's a wide variety of ecosystems around the world because there's different groups of organisms present in different areas, and those different areas have different physical features. So you get a big variety in terms of ecosystems. But we kind of classify them into these groups. So we've got deserts, rainforests, marine, tundra, and reef ecosystems. These are just a small list. So here we have desert over here. Rainforests are very common over the world, particularly in the tropical areas. Marine, that's all the ocean. Tundra is where it's cold. You get frozen land. And reef ecosystems are associated with the tropics as well. We're very famous in Australia for the Great Barrier Reef, but there are reefs over the world. Now, even though a desert in Australia and a desert in the US might superficially look similar, there are differences between them. That's due to evolutionary reasons, but also the conditions are slightly different. The physical features of the environment are slightly different too. So for that reason, a reef in Australia will look different to a reef in Mauritius, for example. The last bit we're going to look at is stability. We have a general rule in ecology that the greater the biodiversity in terms of genes and species present in an ecosystem, the more stable that ecosystem is. When you remove species from ecosystems, you damage things like feeding relationships between organisms in that ecosystem, and that can lead to the collapse of the entire ecosystem. So down here we have an example. So if you remove trees from an ecosystem, and once you remove those trees, you replace them with a monoculture, so you just plant one species, but then a disease comes in that affects that species, you can get all the plants in that monoculture dying off, and that leaves you with a wasteland. Barren wasteland. This doesn't happen very often because you get weedy species coming in and replacing what's there, and that's called succession. We're going to look at this a bit later on too. A good example of this happening is with bananas. There's a wide variety of bananas all over the world, but the bananas that we eat today are mainly what's called a Cavendish banana. That's one type of banana. Cavendish banana became popular in the 1960s because its predecessor, the Gros Michel banana, it died off. So here are some Gros Michel. This is a lady called Carmen Miranda. She was a famous actress. And she wore fruit on her head. I'm not sure why. These bananas here, they're different from the bananas we eat. A fungal infection went all around the world and it killed off all these bananas. These bananas are all genetically identical. So one pathogen coming in and killing off all those bananas killed off every single banana all across the world. And it's very hard to find a Gros Michel banana now. Cavendish banana that we have today in our supermarkets, it's less flavorful than the Gros Michel, but it's also more resistant to fungal infections, so that's why it's common. There are theories that bananas might die out soon anyway because of the very low diversity within their genes. So just restating, if there's a wide variety of species with a big genetic diversity, then your ecosystems are less vulnerable to outside effects and human interactions. Humans can have big impacts all over the world. So here we have deforestation. So here is Brazil, and here is the rainforest in Brazil, and you can see that from 1997 to 2013 there's been a big change. So the areas where the forests were are decreasing, so getting more deforestation. And you get this vegetation other than forest coming in and replacing it. Over here we have Borneo. The forests are being replaced with palm oil plantations, and that has an impact on things like orangutans. They can't live on palm oil plantations, they're shooed off and often killed too. And we can see the effects of removing forests and replacing them with palm oil plantations in this animation down here. Sometimes there isn't a human cause. Down here we have, in Australia, we have issues with our mammals going extinct, but also birds. Down here is a Tasmanian devil. It has facial tumour disease. Tasmanian devils fight each other and they pass on this disease by fighting each other. It killed off a ridiculous number of the Tasmanian devils, to the point where Tasmanian devils without the disease were rescued and taken to offshore islands off of Tasmania, so that they could breed to try and replace the numbers. There's a low genetic diversity in the Tasmanian devils. Because of that, the disease came through. It killed off a wide variety of the Tasmanian devils, so there's only a few left. Because this disease came through, it reduced the genetic diversity of the Tasmanian devils to the ones that are present on mainland or on those offshore islands. So they came very close to disappearing from the ecosystem completely. Today on Flippin Science, we looked at biodiversity and stability. That's it for Flippin Science today. See ya!